Hello and welcome back to another video on Wrestling and to another edition of Smackdown Out of 10. We're less than a week removed from Clash initially, but WWE's already focused on this year's King and Queen of the Ring tournaments. The quarter-final round in both brackets comprised of a fatal four-ways. On Monday Night Raw, Sky and Io Femi advanced, and we got more of those matches on this week's show. But we opened things off with a recap of Clash in Italy before going live in the arena in Bologna as Michael Cole and Wade Barrett were welcoming us to the show. Gunther showed up and started destroying announce tables. He grabbed a mic and began ranting about being screwed out of the title at the PLE because he was foot under the rope during the pin. Cody came out to respond and looked as happy as could be. He shook hands and signed autographs in the crowd, and he said Gunther was right about using his foot under the rope, but also criticised him for complaining about it instead of being a pro. Rose said he was up for giving Gunther a rematch right there and then, but Sami Zayn came out and Gunther and Rose had both done them wrong. Gunther ended up coming into the ring and putting Rose in a sleeper. Zayn chose to save Rose, but moments later Rose hit Zayn with a suicide dive and Gunther pulled him into that pass. The segment started off strong with Gunther wrecking the ringside area, looking like he was a crazed man, but as more people got adding, it kind of became less interesting. A short energetic promo from Gunther to set up the confrontation later probably could have been better. Still an okay segment, sets up a few options. Rose having multiple challenges makes it interesting. As we then moved on to Raquel Rodriguez, JC James, Kiana James and Bayley in those Queen of the Ring quarterfinals. Morgan, Henley and Reed did not accompany their allies to the ring, but James insisted that Julia join her for support. Bayley ran after Raquel and clotheslined her out of the ring. Bayley looked especially strong in the early minutes of the match by fending off all three opponents, but the numbers eventually caught up. The match lasted through 2 breaks, so it was time for all 4 women to have moments in control. Given they were enough time so they didn't feel rushed out to start, all 4 competitors looked great in the ring and made this a fun encounter. Rodriguez ended up scoring the win to advance. James and Julia had a miscommunication that led to James losing. The beautiful man has tried to help her friend, but James blamed her for the loss. Julia tried to explain, but when James shoved her, she lost and attacked her. So yeah, this is going to be an interesting story. 6 out of 10. As we then moved on to Royce Keys versus Talatonga in a big old match. If you come into a match like this expecting technical exchanges and wrist locks, you're probably going to be disappointed. If you expected 2 big dudes hitting each other as hard as possible, you had a fun time. They did a good job making it feel like Knife Man had a clear advantage. The match might not have been very exciting, but it was structured in a way that made sense and built towards the finish. Solo and Tanner tried to get involved, but Keys fought them off. Tally used the opportunity to hit his coke down to get the pin and the win. R-Truth tried to make the save during the post-match attack, but he was beaten down too. Truth pulled Priest Truth from the ring, but left Keys to be taken out. Yeah, it's an interesting one. I personally wouldn't have had Keys leave so early on, but yeah, there's a few interesting storylines there which I think could go in an intriguing direction. We then got Charlotte Flair and Tiffany Stratton versus Jade Cargill and Michin. Rhea came out in street clothes with a knee brace on her right leg. She bragged about beating Jade at Clash next week, but said it came at a cost. She said Jade and her cronies failed to beat her because she had some unexpected help, prompting Charlotte to join in the ring. Queen said she was more fun teaming with Ripley than expected, but she still has her eye on the world title. They were soon joined by Tiffany, Cargill, Michin and B-Fab. Flair suggested Jade and one of her allies face her and Tiffy since Rhea isn't cleared to compete. Nick Aldis loved the idea and called for it to start as soon as possible. The match had isolated moments that were good, but as a whole it felt a bit clunky, which is unfortunate given we all know the quality. Cargill was able to get the win with Jaded. Flair had been taken out by Beefo at ringside to prevent her breaking it up. I'll give it 5 out of 10. As we then moved on to Ricky Saints and Carmelo Hayes, obviously following their double count out last week. As soon as Hayes was done posting, Saints jumped on him, the ref called for the bell and he continued his assault before Hayes could get his jacket off. He ended up sending Ricky out of the ring and hitting a dive, followed by a huge frog splash for a 2 count, all with his leather jacket on. They did a great job making this feel like more of a personal battle than the last match. They were taking little shots at each other between bigger spots and it added to the intensity nicely. Saints almost won by count out, but Hayes made it back in time. Ended up not being enough to win, but Saints had him rolled up with a handful of tights a moment later to steal the win. A good match, but they were holding back, and you can tell they're building towards a funner final encounter, which should be the best in the series. I'll give it 7 out of 10. After beating Nia Jax last week, Chelsea Green was hoping to continue building momentum against Lash Legend. Green's not a short woman, but she was dwarfed by Legend when they squared up. Green got the first shot in and then ran away from her until she was able to bait her into the ring for a code breaker. Legend recovered quickly and took control. Jax attacked Green while the ref was distracted, but it wasn't enough to take her out of the fight. Green was putting up a good fight, but Legend and Jax were too much for her to overcome in the end. The match wasn't bad, but it felt like they were never quite found their groove. It also felt a bit on the quick side, which didn't help. There was one thing that did effectively was position Green more as a face. She can be a popular star if booked right. So yeah, 5 out of 10. As we then moved on to the main event, fatal 4-way for the King of the Ring, Priest, Mysterio, Braun and Trick. Coming into this match, Breaker and Williams seemed like the safest bets to win, especially with Breaker looking so dominant in the first half. However, with 4 people involved, Braun didn't have part to play in the final decision, and that's exactly what ended up happening. Morgan prevented Priest from pinning Dom by distracting the ref, and it looked like Breakker would take advantage of the situation, but more shenanigans ensued. After Breakker took himself and Williams out with a flying clothesline, Morgan hit a low blow, helping Dirty Dom get the 619 and the win. And yeah, I didn't see that coming, to be fair, but I think it could be a good thing. We haven't really seen much from Dom Mysterio lately, so hopefully that gives him a bit of a boost. And overall, this week's SmackDown wasn't a bad show, but it just wasn't a great show either. It just kind of exists. Hayes and Saints had the match of the night, but both of their fatal four-ways provided some highlights too. It may seem weird, but the most enjoyable thing on the show, aside from Saints and Hayes, was Danhausen's quick backstage segment with The Miz. Whoever is working Danhausen to write these segments clearly understands the gimmicks, and if they play their cards right, I mean, yeah, he's just going to continue being more and more popular with me. Great stuff.
For this video, thanks very much for watching. Remember to like, share, subscribe, follow us on our socials, link in the description below for daily wrestling news, meme and content. Subscribe to our other channels on screen right now, that'd be greatly appreciated. Thanks very much for watching. Peace out.